will need as we recover from COVID-19. Having lived in the shadow of the coronavirus for the last 2 months, our sights are now set on our gradual re-entry to normal life, or whatever you'd consider normal these days. Now, the public discussions about reopening and getting back to work very much focuses on the timing and the restrictions of the process. But I think that we need a discussion on the spiritual and the emotional aspect of our recovery. I gained insight from a teaching by the 12th century Rabbi Ephraim Bar Isaac, who lived in Regensburg in Bavaria in Germany. He's quoted in the book Nachal K'dumim, where he points out that the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, is always read around the time of the holiday of Chavuz, when we commemorate the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. To find a connection between Bamidbar and Chavuz, he turns to Gematria, Hebrew numerology. What this method does is assigns a numerical value to each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, and then for double digits, Yud Aleph, Yud is 10, Aleph is 1, so that's 11. And for triple digits, it uses the last 4 letters, Kuf, Resh, Shin, and Tuf. 100, 200, 300, and 400. And if needed, it doubles that. For example, our year since creation is 5,780. To spell it out, it uses Tuf, Shin, Pei. Tuf is 400, Shin is 300, and Pei is 80. That's how we spell this year, 5780. He uses the first verse in the book of Bamidbar to find a connection with Chavuz. The verse goes as follows: Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe b'midbar Sinai. And the Lord spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert. The word Bamidbar, in the desert, has the same numerical value as the name Avraham, Abraham. And then he points out that Sinai, has the same numerical value as the Hebrew word ani, ayin nun yud, which means a poor person, but could also mean a humbled person. And then he says the double words, b'midbar Sinai, in the Sinai desert, has the same numerical value as the word b'shalom, which means in peace and unity. If you take these 3 code words, they could also show us 3 attitudes we could use as we focus on our personal, communal, and collective recovery from this pandemic. So here's the first: faith. Abraham was the father of the monotheistic religions. During his time, the world has turned to idolatry and false gods that they could touch and feel. Abraham reintroduced the concept of the belief in a one God, and he did so despite enormous challenges and hardship. Abraham exemplifies faith. Now, this virus has been a powerful adversary. Lives have been lost. I personally know people who passed away. Our jobs have vanished. Our freedom, our personal freedom has been restricted. Our educational system has been downgraded. We will need sheer faith in God along with our determination to help us through this time as we try to recuperate. In searching for a story about recuperating, I'm reminded, and recuperating while using faith and determination, I'm reminded of my great-grandparents, Yehuda Yosef and Shana Rifkin. They lived in the town of Gomel in Belarus. they had limited means, and one holiday they found themselves without any food or money to pay for it, to buy any. Hours before the holiday, my great-grandfather asks, please turn on the oven. Please fire up the oven. His wife turns to him and says, we have nothing to cook or bake. But he insists, turn on the oven. I'm going out and God will help us with food for the holiday. He goes to his stand in the marketplace where he used to fix locks, making very little money, obviously. But he had one big lock that he was hoping to sell for a few extra ruble. Well, that day, as he gets to the stand, this person walks by and starts examining the lock. The person then says, I'd like to buy this, but I need you to install it for me. My great-grandfather is thrilled. No problem, I'll do it. And together they walk to the outskirts of town. After the lock is installed, the client is reminded that remembers that he doesn't have any money. So he turns to my great-grandfather and says, sorry, I have nothing to give you. Do you have anything else besides for money to give me? And the client says, actually, here's a sack of potatoes. You're welcome to take that. Without thinking twice, my great-grandfather takes his sack of potatoes, throws it over his back, and walks home. He said that during this walk, he felt like he wasn't carrying the potatoes were carrying him because he was so excited. He gets home and the family has enough food for the next few days. Our family has seen this story as an example of the faith that we need in God along with our determination to get things done. Here is attitude number 2, humility. God has chosen Mount Sinai as a location to give the 10 Commandments as a lesson in humility. It was the mountain with the lowest range in the area. And it was from these humble beginnings, that we were able to rise up and reach the promised land. We are also experiencing a lesson in humility. I feel like life before the pandemic has been one showcase of extravagance. We've been enjoying great economic prosperity, and we weren't shy to flaunt our luxuries and vacations. Now we're facing a recession and uncertainty, and we will need humility to help us discover new jobs, to discover new avenues to make things work and reach a better time. And here's point number 3, unity. The Torah describes the Jewish encampment at Mount Sinai with the singular verb of vayichan. Now Rashi, the commentator, points out that previous encampments were done with the spirit of murmuring and even disunity. This one at Mount Sinai was done ki ish echad belev echad, with one person, with one heart. We were united at that time. There is a story about Rabbi Moshe Gedalia Goldman, who was the Zvila Rebbe who lived in Ukraine. The communist regime exiled him to a labor camp in Siberia for practicing his faith. Now the rabbi was fairly strong, so he was able to survive. Until one day he's called to the office of the camp, and the officer looks at him and another fellow Jew standing beside him and tells them, today is your lucky day. I've received orders to release you home. All I have to do is sign these documents and you're free to go. And he hands a pen to the rabbi. The rabbi is hesitant. That day was Shabbos. Writing is desecrating Shabbos. And he was thinking to himself, I'm fairly strong and I'm fairly healthy. Me staying here another day or more will not harm me. I have no right to desecrate Shabbos. It is not pikuach nefesh. There is no danger to my life. The officer hears his hesitation and says, are you nuts? You might stay here for so much longer. Are you not going to sign? And he's like, no, I won't. So the officer turns to the other Jew, this elderly, sickly person, and says, "You sign." That person, seeing the rabbi's staunch stand, and says, and is hesitant to sign. But then something amazing happened. The rabbi turns to the officer and says, "Please hand me the pen and that person's documents. I will sign them. He is clearly not well. And every single hour that he's here, another hour, another longer day that he's here, another hour that he's here, will harm his life. I will desecrate Chavuz to save him." The officer, deeply impressed by this rare sign of brotherly care and unity, says, "You guys just go, I'll sign for both of you." In many places of the world, especially the United States, the pandemic happened at a time of ideological division and political partisanship. Our self-isolation has sparked this yearning to connectivity and social interaction and care for one another. By setting our differences aside, we have an opportunity to focus on common ground and try to revitalize ourselves as one nation under God. So these are the three attitudes that are good for any day, but especially during this time. I'd love to hear what you think, because we could really use a discussion on the ways that will help us to move forward. So use the comments below to share your thoughts on these methods and any other approach that you think will help other people get through this time. Thank you for joining today. I wish you all a happy, meaningful, and healthy holiday of Chavuz.